Hey guys, thanks again for tuning in to Aussies taking over the NBA. We really appreciate your support. So again, like, share and subscribe on all of our content. Got some sad news today to bring you. Before we start this podcast, we actually recorded it last night before we knew that today Mangok Matthiang has been waived by the Charlotte Hornets. It sucks for him. We really think he could have made it onto the Hornets roster and possibly into their rotation. But, you know, it wasn't to be. We really hope he sort of bounces back and finds another NBA franchise to play on. But we just wanted to let you know that we did record this before we knew and before we found out that he had been waived. We did talk about a few things that he can do to get onto that roster. But, yeah, probably would have sounded silly having this come out just after he's been waived without letting you guys know. But, again, thanks again for your support. We really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy this episode. All right, welcome to Aussies Taking Over the NBA, episode 21. I got Andy here with me today.
Oh, hoi, hoi.
It's been a little while since we recorded an episode, so we thought we'd come today and we'd record a little bit of a update on what some Aussies are doing in the off-season. We've got a Mitch Creek and a Mangok Matthiang episode sort of coming. We're going to record later and we'll release them a little bit later. But as always, we're at AusNBA Takeover on YouTube, AusNBA Takeover on Facebook, and on hashtag The Collectives Podcast Network. Look us up, subscribe, give us a like, leave any feedback, do all those things, and we'll keep producing content. We're also going to be working on a new Sydney Kings podcast because their season's going to kick off in a couple of months. So if you're in Sydney and you enjoy the Kings, check us out. It's going to be on the King's dime. We'll be recording our first episode later today, so check that out if you are into Aussie basketball and the NBL and you want to hear about that sort of stuff. We'll be working on that a little bit later. So
indeed.
But let's get into Aussies in the off season.
What's been happening? Well, bit slow in the old NBA, but there's tons of drama as always.
Yeah.
Simmons, I believe, was working out with Dante Exum the other day.
Yeah.
Had some pictures on his Instagram of those two working out, which was pretty cool. Mitch Creek, a little bit of a drama with the Adelaide 36ers potentially blocking his training camp move to Brooklyn, or not allowing him to go to training camp, but not allowing him to potentially sign without some sort of compensation from the NBA.
We'll go through that a little bit more in detail in his season preview. But I thought that was less about let's get upset that this is happening and more about, man, compensate Adelaide a little bit. Like, I thought it was a pretty dirty thing for Adelaide to do. But at the same time, like...
Yeah, but it depends. If he's contractually got an NBA out clause, you can't really...
Well, I think they're well within their rights as a franchise who isn't a massive worldwide franchise or who isn't a really well-known franchise to say, hey, give us a little bit of dough.
Give him 50 grand. Shut up, money. What's 50 grand to the Nets?
You know what I mean? But we'll go into that in depth. So that was, you know, he almost sort of scuppered his dreams, which would have been a disaster for him. But he's heading over there, I think, very soon for their training camp. And I think he might have a shot there. They're lacking sort of big men who can score around the rim and big men who can facilitate. So I wonder if you can make that roster.
I think they're just lacking a team in general.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't want to...
Yeah, well, let's be real here. They can't attract really any big names. They're kind of like the Philly, but not doing it properly. I don't think they're... Spencer Dinwiddie is not a bad player, but around him... Not a lot of options. They haven't really tanked enough to get the picks that are required to rebuild. And so they're kind of stuck in this limbo of just potentially signing players that are either coming off high contracts and haven't been performing or, you know, potentially like a Mitch Creek who is an unknown in the NBA world and has shown himself in the summer league as someone with some potential.
Yeah.
And so we're going to sign him to a min contract and get him in the 15 or potentially a two-way contract from the G League and get him in the G League team. So
and either way, he earns some money, which is good for him and his career. Yeah,
he's getting paid, which is good.
But we'll cover all of that anyway in our episode, so stay tuned for that after this one. Baines re-signed as well. That's going to be pretty good for the Celtics. They're looking like they're going to be pretty deadly.
The East is going to be... I mean, with Kawhi now going to Toronto, it gives them a third team in the East, I think. It gives Philly... I know that the NBA is playing the Philly-Boston rivalry because they're on the first game of the season, Christmas Day special.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I haven't even checked the...
Kickoff.
Yeah.
Ben Simmons is ringing in the bell for the new year.
Oh, that'll be good.
The new basketball season. So they're playing Christmas Day. They're really kind of plugging this as the Eastern big game series all year, which I think is pretty accurate coming off some potentially exciting players. Just before we kind of jumped on, we were talking about Markelle Fultz and his shot being rebuilt and, man, looking...
He looks deadly.
Pretty good.
Even if his shot is no good still, or even if they're still working on his shot, he can still get to the rim. Like, he looked deadly. Some of those dribble moves he was doing in those Instagram videos, like, he looked deadly.
There was a funny Instagram post, and, not taking away from Lonzo Ball or Jason Tatum, but in 16 games, Markelle Fultz had more triple-doubles than either of them did the whole season. So the guy can rebound, the guy can dish, he can dribble. He was shooting at 35% above in college from beyond the arc. So we know there's the potential there. And he's been working with some good coaches on his shooting, and you can check out those videos online. Actually, they're pretty good. And
one of his handles, man. Oh, that was just brutal.
And I can see why Philly, because you think about this off season, and Philly didn't attract really anyone. They got Chandler Parsons, or they're after Chandler Parsons.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, now with Zaire Smith, which is the Philly rookie curse. Yeah, his foot, he's looking like he's going to be out for, potentially the season. So
is that the third rookie in a row, pretty much, that's foot injury?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Embiid got a foot injury. And then Simmons,
Smith. Noel.
Nerlens Noel, I think, had a knee injury as well.
Yeah, they just it's brutal. The Philly curse. But yes, they really haven't done anything off season. Obviously, with Mike Muscala coming on board as well with the Atlanta Hawks Melo trade. Yeah.
I think he'll be a good system player for them. The main thing will be
minutes.
A little bit like Ilyasova played for them last year, like a solid presence, someone who can sort of come out to the 3-point line and shoot and space the floor a little bit, because you want to get guys out of the way of guys like Fultz and Simmons. And with a catch and shoot player like Redick, you want to make sure to get him open at the same time. So it's a kind of tri-prong attack that you're always moving around trying to set up different shots. So it's an important part of your attack to make sure you're not only moving for one scoring option, moving for another scoring option, making sure every option is available. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just have JJ Redick standing out in the corner without spacing the floor properly. And if you guys aren't spacing the floor properly, Ben Simmons needs the lane clear for him to drive because he can't shoot. Fultz, even if he can't shoot, he's going to be able to drive and get to the rim and, want to be able to dish out to an open Redick, give the ball to Embiid on the post, get out of his way type of thing. So you're always looking for different options.
Yeah. Look, Fultz for me is going to be the surprise package of this year.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a good thing for Philly. So we can move over to the West because I think that's pretty much done for some goss. But Melo finally signing with the Rockets, worst kept secret in NBA.
I don't know what they're doing with that.
He should do his Chinese showcase. I mean, Dwayne Wade's been offered $21 million over 3 years to go to China.
Would you do that though?
Yeah, it's money. What are you gonna play out your NBA legacy? He's not going to win a ring. If you're going to win a ring, you got to go to Golden State.
Yeah, it's true.
As a bench warmer, really.
I think or Boston or Philly.
As a bench warmer. Take Min, vet Min, and stay there. But realistically, your best bet with Boogie Cousins going to the Warriors is go and play some bench minutes on the Warriors. He's obviously not wanting to do that. He still thinks he's going to be playing starting at Houston, which for me, who's going to play defense when you got 5'9" Chris Paul, who's actually 6'1",
but he's not a bad defender and he's scrappy. The problem is you're already trying to hide Harden, in that. You know what I mean? You're already on the defensive end. Teams are always going to look to exploit Harden. Then when you have Carmelo next to him, suddenly you've got two guys you can exploit.
Yeah.
And it's going to open them up. If both of them can't come together with the defensive chemistry and defend, you always, you saw what happened to the Cavaliers in the final, where basically the Golden State just kept rotating onto JR every time, over and over and over again. And I think these teams are starting to work that out. They're starting to get a little bit more smart and able to lock in on someone. Like you saw the Jazz do it to Carmelo in their series. Like
and
they
Boston
just
did it to Redick as well, really.
Yeah. They locked in on that one weakness and just went, right, if we need to score, we're just going to go straight to that weakness every time. And, Harden and Melo, I don't know how that's going to work in a starter situation. Look, if Melo goes to Houston and then goes, right, it's not working, I'm going to sit on the bench and run the second unit, then maybe they might get something out of that.
Yeah, but not as a starter.
I don't think he's going to want to do that, to be honest. And fair enough. I mean, he's quite a well-known player and his abilities could fit into a top team and maybe work, but I don't know if they fit.
You can't play him through the playoffs.
I don't think they fit in Houston because of that the way Harden is, and the way Houston was playing at the end of last year, shooting a lot of threes, but at the same time having a lot of big sort of wide bodies, even though they were short, like PJ Tucker. I mean, Ariza's quite a lengthy and a good defender.
Gordon.
They had a lot of meat to attack players on the defensive end, if that makes sense. Doesn't really make sense, but they had a lot of body to push guys around, whereas I think they've kind of lost that with Mbar Mute and Ariza leaving.
Chris Paul max extend contract for me is a bad decision.
Well, depends where that franchise wants to go, playing devil's advocate. To me, it looks like
this was their year to win. Or last season was their year to win it, realistically. They had their best. This team next year is a step down from the team the year before, and they still couldn't get to the final. So what's that saying for next year when the Warriors just added Boogie Cousins to their roster?
But we can't look at that and just go, oh, the instant winners, like, give them the title now. I don't think...
You can't look at that, but you have to look at who adds what to their rosters to get somewhere. The Lakers added LeBron. Does that get them into the finals? Potentially.
Yeah.
I think it gets them into the playoffs, guaranteed. Even though they say they're only going to be playing for 33, 34 minutes. We'll see how that goes when they're... The
Lakers said that about LeBron.
Yeah.
I think that's a good move,
That's a great move because it's going to prolong his career.
I thought it was crazy. He was playing many minutes LeBron. Last year.
That wasn't, that team was LeBron. It was coached by LeBron.
Yeah.
The guys that wanted to play were LeBron. It was LeBron featuring four guys that wanted to, we're going to pass the ball to LeBron.
And even those four guys had looked like they'd kind of gone stale too, and just like, oh, whatever, we can let LeBron do all that. Yeah. And if we lose, who cares? Everyone's going to blame LeBron anyway type of thing.
I think the Cleveland Cavaliers might have a better year actually learning how to play some basketball.
Yeah.
But so they've added to their, Denver has added to their strengths.
Isaiah Thomas, man, that guy.
Yeah, but that's just a min contract for the sake of giving someone a min contract.
When he left Boston, basically that year he left, or that year he got traded, he was in line to get a max contract, basically $130 million contract. He's been traded and then shipped out again from Cleveland. Now he's signed a vet minimum. Man, he's lost so much money. I feel so sorry for him.
You feel sorry for him, but he's a pawn for the NBA. That's the problem.
Oh, man. But you look at that. Like if they hadn't have gone for Kyrie, he would have stayed at Boston, signed the max, and been earning, I think it was $130 million over 4 years. But now he's basically earning $4 million. Like, he's lost like nearly $100 million. I feel sorry for him, but that's the game. That's why I always sort of, when people get really upset about contracts and loyalty and stuff like that, I just go, man, at the drop of a hat, here's a guy that should have been earning $130 million, and even for his franchise, what he did for them, getting them to the final, playing through an injury, he still got kicked in the nuts. And he's basically only earning like the vet minimum now.
Yeah.
So
he was 60th pick in the draft, wasn't he?
Yeah. So I hope he has a good season for Denver.
Look, I think he'll
run
the backup. Hopefully this is him coming back into a bit of a spotlight. I think he should have signed with the Magic. The Magic for me is a franchise that's going nowhere, has nothing, and has Mo Bamba.
Yeah. And Timofey Mozgov as well.
Jesus. And Vukovic, but for me that was the right move into a weak conference.
IT.
IT. That was the right move, and he should have just taken vet min there. I think he tried to push the envelope and ended up just taking the vet min.
I don't blame him for trying to push the envelope. That's much money to be losing over 2 years.
You're not worth it. The league has determined that you're not worth anything. You're going to a weaker conference where you're potentially going to get good minutes with a team and get your stardom back up, sign a year, and then ask for more money. He's going to get lost in the Denver system, for my mind.
Yeah. Denver's just such a unusual team. They gave Nikola Jokic the max.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough. I mean, he's their franchise cornerstone player, but the big center player, a center, like a attacking center, is kind of not really the in thing at the moment.
Yeah, but look at Embiid.
Yeah, but Jokic is not that post threat. I think he's more of a shooting threat and more of a sort of corner 3 specialist. I mean, he likes to bang down low, but I don't think it's his strength. Like Embiid has proper post moves and proper scoring ability at the rim. And for Embiid, you have to bypass the fact that he can score like that if you want to run other offense around that player. Yeah. But at the same time, he doesn't look like a guy where it doesn't matter. Like he's more than happy to move up, set a screen, and off the ball do something. Yeah. It doesn't always have to go down low to Embiid all the time.
Yeah.
Because he's been in that system for so long, like he can adapt as well. But Denver's just. But we'll probably work on some over-unders, I think, some predictions and stuff. For where Denver were last year, I don't see them winning about the same amount of games. And then you look at LA's coming into that now, you would expect LA, I reckon, to probably win between about 45 and 50 games minimum with LeBron.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a big logjam at the end of the West.
Anyway, there was a logjam this year, but I think 5 teams finished within 3 points of each other.
Yeah. In the end, I think 3 of them finished on the same amount of points.
Interesting. Yeah, it was different.
Wins. Sorry, they did wins. Yeah. It's definitely logjam. So for IT, Orlando would have been the destination for me. Yeah.
But yeah, let's.
So what about moving on to Ryan Broekhoff at Dallas? What do you reckon? How do you reckon he'll fit in at Dallas?
I'm not sure.
So they drafted Doncic.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get to see Doncic in the summer league, so it's hard to know exactly what this dude is going to bring to the NBA.
Yeah,
I'd really like to see a couple of warm-up games and see where Broekhoff fits in, but it's not really a system that I'm familiar with because they really haven't done anything over the last couple of seasons. Obviously, a bit of a powerhouse 6-7 years ago.
I don't think what their season last year, how they tanked, really represented where that franchise actually is at. I mean, Dirk's pretty old. He's 40. He signed that deal. They signed DeAndre Jordan after that crazy trying to sign him 2 years ago and locking him in a bathroom or something crazy that happened. So they signed him, drafted Doncic, Harrison Barnes. He's an all-around scorer. I think Yogi Ferrell left. And I think Seth Curry left as well. So I wonder if they're just going to give Doncic the ball and say, right, they got Dennis Smith Jr. as well. So I think where Broekhoff will fit into that team as a 3-point specialist would be a perfect fit in his first year to just sort of feel everything out, basically stand in the corner and wait to get open and hit threes, which hopefully, if Dennis Smith Jr. and Doncic are carrying the workload, he'll be able to just sit in and shoot threes because his inside game and he's attacking the rim, it's decent. at a Euro League level, but it's not NBA level. I don't think
he's
it's
there to be
really
a sharpshooter.
deadly.
He's
just going to shoot, I think.
Joe Ingles, which is fine.
I think it's going to be the perfect system. I think they've got a big man who is just going to stay at the rim, so he's going to space the floor, and they've got Doncic who can handle, and then Dennis Smith Jr. who can handle as well. So hopefully he picks up 6 or 7 minutes a game, and he's just shooting threes. And look, Joe Ingles, it was the same for Joe Ingles.
Yeah, a couple of seasons ago.
I think Joe Ingles all around is probably has become a better player.
Well, he's just become a better player because he's played in a system in the NBA and has some coaches. I mean, broke off 2 years down the track when we're talking about him. He may be that guy that's playing 25 minutes a game and hitting the rim and also, spacing the floor and shooting the three. But, EuroLeague's definitely a step down.
It'll be interesting to see if he can handle the ball and attack the rim and even sort of handle the ball on the wing and pass out of the wing. If he's not shooting threes, I think that's where that sets Joe Ingles apart, his ability to pass. Like Joe Ingles and running pick and roll with Gobert most of last year, at the start of last year. That's where he grew as a player. Like you could see, he expanded his role. He was able to pass, run pick and roll with Gobert, and as well as trailing, shoot threes and run to the corner and shoot threes. So, and then Dante Exum, he signed that deal as well. So we were talking about players sort of being rewarded. Like sometimes as fans or as analysts, you see the raw data of what a franchise is doing. Like, why are they signing this guy to this deal? They've got this amount of cap space. But I feel like they're rewarding Exum, even though he's been injured a few times. They're rewarding him because he's got a good attitude. He's worked hard. He's tried to get back.
And there's still some raw talent there.
Yeah. Which I haven't heard many people talk about the Jazz as a franchise and what they sort of, like, I've only really heard people talk about that deal not being very good. Like, they wouldn't have given Dante Exum, I think it was 3 years, 33.
Yeah.
So 11 a season. But I like to think that Utah was saying, like, we think there's something good in you and we want to try and get it out of you, even though you've been injured a little bit. We'll still try and work with you to try and make that happen.
I think there's two reasons for that. One is they've hit the jackpot with Mitchell.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. So they've got another 3 years under rookie contracts.
Yeah.
So that's cap space. So that's lines up nicely.
Yeah.
Rubio is still an injury worry, even though he's a decent guard. He's still an injury worry. And therefore they need someone who's back up and been in the system a while and potentially has the raw talent. And everyone has to remember, they picked Exum off no college, off 3 games he played for the under 21 Australian team, where he scored like 28 points a game and was dishing 8 assists or something. So in the FIBA World Cup, under 21 World Cup. So there's raw talent there. And he showed that in he showed that in the final. Against Houston, where he guarded Harden. Harden shot nothing while he was being guarded by Exum, and then had that massive dunk to pretty much seal the game in the one they won. So
and it blew his hammy, poor bastard.
Yeah, he's just young. His structures aren't there yet. But the talent's there. They've got the backup. No one really is leaving. I believe this year. I think it's a pretty
Jerebko went to the Warriors. That was it. But
it.
Jerebko was kind of off the bench scoring.
Yeah.
Decent big man who can shoot. They drafted Grayson Allen, who at the back end of last season, when we were talking about Ingles and Exum in their season wrap-ups, were sort of saying that they needed another guy who could shoot, like to have shooters on both wings, to play Ingles at the power forward and have him sort of leak out to the wing. You kind of want another wing on the other side who can leak out and they can switch the ball, or they can swing the ball around and have someone else. So drafting Grayson Allen, I think will be really good for them. I think it'll be, I think he's going to knock down a lot of shots and he's going to get a lot of open shots because of the way they play with Donovan Mitchell driving to the rim, Exum driving to the rim, Ricky Rubio running a traditional point, Rudy Gobert in the paint. I think they're going to be a decent team, and hopefully I'm going to enjoy watching them, because I enjoyed watching Joe Ingles at the back end of last season. He was probably my pick. Like, the Utah Jazz were probably my pick besides watching the Warriors as the team to watch, like the most interesting team. They had an interesting setup. They were playing good basketball, good all-round basketball. It was just a shame they had some little injuries. Rubio got injured. Donovan Mitchell's inexperience sort of shined.
Yeah, it was just dishing
in that
driving
in that
inappropriately, and not kicking enough.
You could see they were a little bit worn out by the end of that year. So hopefully they can sort of bulk up their roster a little bit, and they look like they've got a pretty versatile roster.
Yeah,
different.
Look, they've got a versatile. It's just that West is so.
Yeah, it's just Wild West. It's bloodbath type stuff.
And then in the East you just got Philly, Boston, and the Raptors will just be cruising through to the playoffs, and the interesting games are when they're playing teams in the West, not when they're playing anyone in the East. Maybe Atlanta with Trae Young if he actually goes off like a firecracker, but that's yet to be seen.
Patty Mills as well in the West.
DeMar DeRozan, he's a solid player. Like you haven't had Kawhi. Yeah, well, you had no Kawhi last year, and you made the finals. DeRozan's only going to add value.
And I think I wouldn't say he was a better player all around than Kawhi. But I feel like he's a more moldable attacking player for the Spurs. So the Spurs system, obviously in itself, is a solid system that allows every single player to sort of achieve their best. I think the way DeRozan's going to fit into that system, obviously he's not as good a defender as Kawhi, and he probably wasn't as good a scorer as Kawhi. But I still think their system's going to open him up as a scorer. Apart from when he was playing in Toronto, he was the go-to scorer, and Kyle Lowry running the point. I think at the Spurs, he's going to blossom as a player because everyone's going to get out of his way, and he's going to be able to blossom as a player because of the way they play. And I think Popovich is really going to invest in him. So it'll be interesting. They got LaMarcus Aldridge there still, which
I don't think they'll be dishing into Aldridge as much. Well, that was the that was the kind of object of what they were doing, because they had really nothing else without Kawhi. In some instances where teams were exploiting the oldness, and the slow and the size, Patty only being 6 foot, Ginobili being a bit older, they were exploiting that in terms of speed and size a bit. So that was when they couldn't score. They were dishing into LaMarcus. Yeah,
and plus playing the Warriors, I mean, it's kind of running sort of.
That was just KD. Just
and
what can you do?
Yeah, they kind of ran 100 miles an hour into a brick wall. I think Kerr kind of outcoached Popovich in that game, but obviously they didn't have Kawhi as well. So hopefully DeRozan as a player, I think he's a similar player. Obviously not the same. Like, obviously not as good all round as Kawhi, but I still think he's a similar type of player that was really going to blossom in their system. And they've done a few more roster moves. I'm not sure if they're going to re-sign Manu again. It'll be interesting if
DeMar DeRozan has requested that Ginobili re-signed on Deadman.
Yeah, for sure, because he was decent last year. I mean, he's dangerous for 3 or 4 minutes a game. But in that Warrior series, suddenly he was playing 15, 16 minutes.
Yeah.
And as a Warriors fan sitting there just going, great, I want him to keep playing. Like, I want him to keep playing on the floor, because that means you've got nothing after a 40-year-old Manu Ginobili. And he would just, like, his effectiveness would just drop off, like, after 10 minutes on the floor. It was suddenly he was playing like a 40-year-old player, and his effectiveness would just die. And you'd think, okay, look, like, attack Ginobili then. But I think they're going to fill their roster out a little bit and not have to use him as much.
No.
Which, they've lost Anderson.
Well, they got Lonnie Walker as well.
Yeah.
Lonnie Walker, the 5th or 4th or 3rd. Or
the Iron Throne hair.
Yeah. The weekend's other weekend cousin.
So it'll be interesting. We're going to go through all of these guys anyway in depth and in detail in
pre-season.
Pre-season.
Which is coming up pretty soon. It's almost that time. Halfway through August, we got September. I think 14th of October is kickoff date.
15th, I think the whole league starts. And then Dellavedova and Thon.
Thonatron. You know what? Milwaukee's been pretty quiet, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Since the whole blow up in the Philippines, we haven't heard diddly squat over that. So new coach, it'd be interesting to see what they come out with round one this year and who they're playing and if Delhi gets a run. But all quiet from that front and that camp at the moment.
I think I've got a feeling they're going to do well. I think they're going to do maybe come in right behind Philly and Boston in terms of wins. I'd be like, after we watched that series, after we went through that Boston series last year, you could tell Antetokounmpo was using every single aspect of his game to try and win, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Which tells you a little bit about the way they were coached, their peripheral players. They've signed a couple of players.
DiVincenzo will be all right as a bit of a sharpshooter as well.
And they've got Brook Lopez as well. So he's a center who can shoot threes. Thon Maker's another sort of center power forward who can shoot threes.
I'd play him stretch 4 on the wing. He looked good for the Aussies. Like he was, stretching the floor well, could shoot, played through the center, used his size effectively. And
gritty as well. Loves a challenge.
Scrap.
Likes to scrap in there. Likes to throw knee-level kicks.
Yeah. Go riding on ponies as well. Dude, have you seen Laurie Markkanen?
Nah.
Wow.
What's that?
That dude has juiced up in the off-season something fierce.
Not like Mike Bibby.
No, not like Mike Bibby, who's decided that he's now a bodybuilder, but like Laurie Markkanen's put on a fair whack of size.
I will have to have a look at him after this.
Yeah. Everyone should go have a look at that. That's scary. Not saying anything's being used, but yeah.
But it's all about Antetokounmpo, really. Like, who's the coach that's going to get the most out of him? But to me, I don't think he's that good as an all-round player.
He's not a shooter. Well, this is the Ben Simmons conundrum. Antetokounmpo is not a traditional 5. He is a ball handler who can power his way to the rim at will, but he can't shoot. And this is what 4 years in the league gets you with no shooting. It gets you finals, but it doesn't get you the wins in the finals. It gets you to the finals. Like Milwaukee will be there. They'll definitely be up there, top 4 or 5 in the East. But at the end of the day, if you got someone who can knock down shots, and this is very much that knockdown shots era in the NBA, then you're going to triumph against a player who can't shoot.
Yeah, he's just such a freak athletically, and I feel like when players get more and more freaky, it gets, obviously they're tough to defend, but it gets harder and harder to systematize their game into your team. Because he was, Antetokounmpo was dancing across the lane, putting up floaters, like shooting step back jumpers, running down the floor, backing people down, shooting fadeaways, like things where they look great when it came off, but you just felt like it just wasn't efficient at all.
No. But again, it's almost the LeBron factor in the wrong person. They need to build that team environment. Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe.
Yeah.
Get the shooters around, get it out to a stretch 4 or 5. And someone who can shoot from the wing like a Brook Lopez or a Thon Maker. And get them out into the corners and be that more efficient unit where you're trying to dish and not just run through the lanes and crash over people like you did to Baines.
And I don't know. I think his star power is at a level where your team in general has to drop everything for him to score as well, which, again, that's another tough thing to plug in to an offense is we can't quite fit this guy in perfectly, but just stand around and let this guy do his thing. I mean, you're taking a little bit away from Middleton. Eric Bledsoe is not the best point guard.
No.
I mean, Delhi's not really the best point guard either. He's had a few injuries, and I think it's still, for me, it's about Antetokounmpo and who they put around him. I just don't think he's not good. I don't think he's good enough to handle the ball yet.
I would put it like a perfect person for me that would fit into that system is a Rondo. because he's just going to dish.
Yeah.
He's going to get you open. He's going to get ATotNBA open. He's going to get your stretch 4. He's going to get a lot of people open to score. And that's where your efficiency is lost in getting to the rim and not having that ability to dish. That for me would have been, actually, you know what? Alonzo Ball would work well in that system. He's not going to work well in LA with LeBron there. I don't think. Not with Rondo. Rondo, Ball, and it's something's got to give, and I think they're going to give it to Rondo. But
it'll be how Lonzo Ball takes it. I mean, they've got Kyle Kuzma as well. I was watching a few videos of Kuzma and Lonzo Ball playing one-on-one, and they were both really feisty, And to me, when Lonzo Ball plays, you don't see that. To me, I watch Lonzo Ball and I don't think, oh, wow, he's really feisty, like really up for it. I don't see that. Like, to me, it doesn't translate in his game. I mean, he's a pretty good shooter, pretty good at getting to the rim. So I wonder if he has the personality to just step back and sort of go, all right, I've got a year now to learn under LeBron. I'm just going to absorb everything like a sponge and it'll make me a better player, or whether he, gets the elbows out and tries to get in there. Who knows? I think he's a decent defender too. I think he's not a bad defender.
He's not a bad player. Like in any other year for the last 6 years, he would have won Rookie of the Year with his stats.
Yeah.
And he was injured a lot of the time as well. Just coming back to ATotNBA, that'll be the Greece team. It'll be the 4 brothers. Because his younger brother, not the one that's just been drafted.
Yeah.
But his younger brother, who's playing basketball in Canada at the moment, I think. He, even Giannis, I've seen him interviewed, he's the freak.
Yeah.
This kid that's coming through is the freak.
How are you more freaky than Giannis? Holy shit.
He is the freak. He is the game. He's 6'7" at the moment, 16. Not overly wide as yet, but 38.
Giannis grew out of nowhere too.
Yeah, Giannis grew out of nowhere. 38% from beyond the line, scoring at will. I mean, he's 16, so he's going to verse some guys play some guys that aren't there. But everyone's giving this kid a rap, and he's going to be the next thing. So, because I think Giannis' older brother was drafted by the Knicks back in the day.
I cannot remember. There was one that was just drafted in the recent draft
by the Philly, and then there's 4 of them. There's there's 4 brothers, mate. The Greek national team at the Olympic Games is going to be identical ball passes to identical ball.
Yeah. I didn't know there was an older one. I thought he was.
Yeah, there's an older one that was drafted by the Knicks a couple of seasons ago, but didn't go anywhere. I think he's back in Europe playing. But there's 4 brothers. The youngest one's 16, and they're all pretty freakish, I suppose, to still get drafted. But yeah, we'll hear more about his younger brother in a couple of years. But I just thought it'd be funny to trying to call that Greece game versus you just be tongue tied the whole time.
The Warriors have 4 All-Stars and Greece has 4 untentacle boats. But I hope the Bucks, I hope Coach Bud actually gets them playing decent basketball, because I also can see them, pushing in behind Philly and Boston in that area, depending on how Toronto plays. I'd like to see Thon get some more minutes. I think he played 15 minutes a game or 13 minutes a game.
But I think they wasted him at center. He's not a center for me at the moment. He's not got post moves. He's a stretch 4 that's got some decent lateral movement for a power forward, and a guy who can shoot 35% from beyond. So that he's not a center. He's got to put another 5 or 6 kilos or 10 kilos to even, he'll just get bullied by Embiid. He'll get bullied by DeAndre Jordan. That's just not his style. It's not the Sudanese body style either, I don't think, that really tall.
It's not top heavy. He's not a top heavy type of player. He really, to me, he kind of looks a bit like Durant. Yeah. And what Durant didn't have physically, he had to make up with his skill and his craft and his ability to use his body instead of...
It's the 7-foot ability to rise above everyone and shoot. That's what it is. You just can't block him.
And, alter your shooting to fit not banging into people, which is another thing that Durant does so well, is, he'll drive to fake and then, step back and put the ball up and you're already sort of on the floor, stuck in position, where another player like LeBron would just run you over, train wreck you and put the ball in. So I hope Thonmaker sort of develops his post moves, putting the ball on the floor in the post, because that's a big area that he can grow as a player. I mean, he's already got the shot. Like, he can shoot from beyond the arc pretty well, shoots the mid-range pretty well. It's just, that inside game where I think if he works on it and elevates in the next couple of years, then, he could grow exponentially as a player. So, and I think that's all the Aussies. And then, Mangok Matthiang.
Yeah, we haven't heard much from him, but he will be in a pre-season special.
Yeah, we'll record that after we record Mitch Creek, which will be coming up next. We got anything else to plug?
Yes, no. We'll plug the On the King's Dime if you're an NBL fan. Obviously Andrew Bogut coming back home, playing for the Kings.
Yeah.
You can go back to one of our previous episodes about Bogut and learn about his NBA career. But time to take it on forward and really talk about what the future holds for Australian basketball and the NBL, and especially the Sydney Kings. So we will be up that on hashtag the Collective Podcast Network, and we'll be talking about that pretty soon.
All right, well, I think that we'll wrap it up and we'll get into Mitch Creek after this.
Cool.
All right, take it easy, peeps.
Peace out.